Hello malt mates, welcome to review number 1136. Extras for extra content, extra opinion, extra perspective and extra extras. And my particular extras today is on the forensic side, hence I have my knackered old steampunker magnifying glass on hand here. Because I have been reviewing recently, in my last review, number 1136, a 41-year-old blended malt. That's 41 years in casks. Not the same cask. I don't believe that for a second. I have an experienced palate. I know what I'm smelling. I know what I'm tasting. But I don't mind the fact that it is not 100% original casks, because I understand that several casks, as the levels went down and oxidization increased due to natural losses in the cask, that there comes a point they have to take several casks into one larger cask and let the whole lot marry and integrate together in order to sustain the actual lifeline and integrity of the flavour and the alcoholic strength of the whisky, because as soon as it falls below 40% volume of alcohol, it can no longer be called whisky. And many years ago, I was in a whisky shop and they say, "Hey Ralphie, what do you think of this?" And they had a little sample bottle which they'd been given by a whisky bottler who had basically bought as part of a batch, because they don't buy one cask at a time, they buy a dozen or 24 casks, and they're just a mixed packet. It's what it's called, a mixed packet. So you just get what you get for the price you're paying. And they came across this old whisky. There was hardly any whisky left in the cask. It was at 37.5%. And it was so exhausted. I mean, it was something like 60 years old. And it was so exhausted that when I put it in the glass and nosed it, I couldn't smell a thing. So excuse me guys, if you got it was a little beer mat over the top of the glass, and I just left it for about 15 minutes and then carried on chatting with the guys, and I came back to it and I thought, now I'm smelling this whisky, and I thought about it and I said, do you know what? This is a ghost of a whisky. You can't even tell whether it's blended or single malt or whatever. It's just the cask that time forgot about for roughly 60 years. It probably was amazing whisky after 15 to 25 years, and it probably continued to develop age and antiquity to 35 and 40 years, but after that it tailed off and it just started to weaken, and for whatever reason nobody went into that cask and said, we better just bottle this now. It was a forgotten cask, and it just became part of a bundle, part of a packet of consignment of casks to be sold to another whisky company. And they discovered it and they tasted it and they thought, my goodness, we can't recover this. It's too delicate, too thin, too ethereal, too ghost-like. But see the experience of tasting that whisky. It was unforgettable, because it wasn't just an alcoholic beverage anymore. It had a unique, fascinating and extremely rare timeline, and I was privileged enough to get to try a glass. And this is something that we all dream about. So how do we achieve that? How do we get closer to our dreams? We've been around whisky for a while. We know non-age statement. We know 10, 15, 18. We've had a few bottles of 21. We've been to the whisky festivals, 25, 30-year-old whisky. But then we see in the shelf something 41, or we see something 46, or we see something suddenly appear just before the end of the year from the likes of North Star, who are kind of good at bottling that sort of thing, and it's 50, or the Thompson Brothers, they're another whisky company that are good at discovering these things. Why? Because they've got access into the wider whisky industry, and they've got the opportunity to go on a cask rummage in a warehouse. 41-year-old, 46-year-old. I might not open this for years, but I paid £180 for this. And give another 10 years, how much will that £180 buy? The way inflation's going. What we do is we spend a little bit extra when we recognise something comes along that's genuinely rare, obscure, a special treat, and offering in terms of its age statement something of relatively good value. It's going to cost more. Of course it's going to cost more. Let me give you a very, very simple practical reason why these whiskies cost more. Because every year the warehouse have to insure their casks, and every year there's a premium called insurance and management fees held by the warehouse to actually hold that cask in a bonded warehouse on location with staff and electricity and expertise. That cost adds up. Over 46 years that cost has grown. That's why we're paying £180 for this, or £140 for this. This is whisky which, if you open the bottle, you only have for yourself, and you only have for your malt mates who have been around whisky for at least 5 years, probably longer. Because see, at whisky festivals and master classes, I have seen, and I've already mentioned this, but it's worth repeating, I have seen people take swirly, shaking really old single malt vintage whisky at bottles priced at £20,000, £30,000, £50,000, £80,000 a bottle, and you glance back in 10 to 15 minutes and they've finished it all. And do you know, they only had 10% of the experience, and if they had shut up chatting to the person next to them and bragging about their whisky bling, perhaps if they'd actually focused on the integrity and quality in the glass, they might actually know more about whisky. But they're not there for the whisky. They're there for the bling and the showboating, the pontificating, the poncing, and the posturing. That happens a lot of in whisky. I mention this because I don't want you to be one of these people. Unfortunately, brand ambassadors encourage it. Why do you think Bowmore have their limited edition release in conjunction with Aston Martin? Oh, give me a break. Seriously. It's cliched. It's almost laughable. These bling. So Macallan do the same with their contemporary, highly desirable, sought after artists. It's all theatre, it's all flannel, and it's all delusional. This is where the reality lies. Are these bottles inferior to bottlings at 10 times, 50 times, 100 times the price? No, they are not. They are just different. But in many ways, they are carrying the authenticity of the age in the warehouse more successfully than these big bling official bottling over-presented brands for sucker punters who are paying stupid premiums. And as a result, the bottlers have to engineer down the whisky so that when the buyers, who do not have great palates generally, although they think they do because they could afford them, when they sip the whisky, they go, "Oh, isn't it marvellous? Oh my goodness, you can almost taste the mountains." What? As time goes on and I get grumpier, I completely avoid these situations now. I just do not have time for it. I've been in the funeral industry coming up 40 years. I'm too much in touch with reality to be deluded by the absurd pretensions of the pretentious people that surround us maltmates. Keep it real. If you're looking for bling bottles, real age statement, genuine bottles, stay light on your feet. It's the smaller independent bottlers. That's where the magic. It's not as if they suddenly got inferior casks. Far from it. Often their expertise is just as good as, if not better, than the big official bottlers in preparing a blended malt or a blended scotch or even a single malt, usually of no age, no specification, frequently Glenfarclas. Glenfarclas, by the way, ages very, 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 very well, particularly in sherry. I want to conclude. When you're looking at these really old bottlings, pay attention to the colour. From the independent bottlers, they're generally natural colour, even if they don't state it, and they damn well should state it, and they are being fundamentally irresponsible and diminishing their reputation by not stating it clearly in the label. Really, the industry needs to sharpen up with this. There needs to be tangible, authentic disclosure on labels for customers. Needs to be. Because people are losing interest, people are getting bored, people are moving on, and people are tightening up their purse strings for specific reasons that we all know about. But see, these old bottlings, they really do deliver that sense of the decades at an affordable price with a premium. Inevitably, because there has to be, because otherwise they'd be bottling this and losing money. It doesn't make commercial sense. But even if you can't afford it on yourself, get your team of maltmates, divide up the cost, buy a bottle of this, get yourself 3 glasses. One for the dish, a tiny wee drop in the second one, a tiny wee drop in the third one, and then get your young Kahlua and literally teaspoon in or pipette in, right, with your wee pipette, your glass preferable, into your little tiny pour some fresh young Kahlua. Let it sit, come back to it. Oh my goodness, wow. See, when you blend really old whiskey with really young whiskey, something magical happens, and it's hard to describe. You can only experience it for yourself, but when you do, trust me in this, you'll never forget it. You're taking control of your journey. Your journey's becoming a much deeper experience, more authentic, more informed, more original, more you, and it's what keeps us engaged. It's what keeps us motivated. And know this, you go out and try 41 or 46-year-old bourbon. Have a look and see if you can find that. Or cognac, 41, 46. Probably bottled at 40% in a Lalique decanter. It's something like £100,000 a bottle. That's the sort of game they play. You know, it's with Scotch whisky that you can really do it. Rum doesn't get to this age if it's matured in the tropics. It can't survive this long. It just can't. Not unless they are thick coating and waxing up casks and burying them in the ground under the warehouse. And by the way, that has been done. Don't know if you're aware of it. I'll leave it at that. Maltmates, my goodness, we're covering a lot of ground here. This is obscure stuff. I'm not mentioning Johnny Walker. I'm not mentioning Chivas Regal. We've moved on from that. This is the rare stuff, the rarefied stuff, the eccentric stuff. Thank you for joining me. Thank you for going the distance. It's lovely to make your acquaintance virtually. See you soon.